All right. I think I am live. Hopefully, things are getting started at least at the end of the day. Hopefully, people had a great start to this week and hope you had a relaxing Memorial Day. I know plenty of people that have served in my day, and very fortunate that they did serve on our behalf. And man, what a great start to the week with this potential, or I guess not potential, but announcement from Rocket Lab. And I didn't have the opportunity because it was 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. my time. I was in the middle of a meeting to be able to listen to the call. So my hope is to listen to the call, talk about some of the news that we're seeing, and at the end of it, would love to do a few potential comments. Hopefully, you guys are having a great day. I know I was pretty excited to see the stock up. Of course, it's kind of bittersweet. I'd always love to be able to accumulate more shares, but heck, at the end of the day, it's great to see continued progression forward and the use of lasers continuing to be a big thing and big topic that I believe will continue into the second half of this decade, as JFK would say. The decade part, not what I said in the full sentence. Anyway, enough of me fooling around, and let's actually get to listening the actual announcement. And let me know. I'm assuming. Let me just double check that you guys can hear, because I know sometimes it doesn't. Also hear tab audio. Yes, perfect. And then let me move this over to the side.
Thank you for standing by. My name is Tina, and I will be your conference operator today. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to the Rocket Lab at Acquire Geost investor presentation. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. Thank you. I would now like to turn the conference over to Muriel Baker, Senior Communications Manager. You may begin.
Love Muriel.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to today's conference call to discuss today's announced proposed acquisition of Geost. As a reminder, the call will include forward-looking statements regarding our future business performance and the expected timing and completion of the proposed transaction, as well as the potential financial impact to Rocket Lab. These statements include risks and uncertainties that could cause our actual results to differ materially from the statements made on this call. Please refer to our press release today and our recent filings with the SEC for information on specific risk factors. Comments made during today's call will primarily refer to both GAAP and non-GAAP financial measures, and any forward-looking statements are made as of today, and Rocket Lab has no obligation to update or revise any forward-looking statements. This call is also being webcast with a supporting presentation, and a replay and copy of the presentation will be available on our website. Our speakers today are Rocket Lab founder and Chief Executive Officer, Sir Peter Beck, as well as Chief Financial Officer, Adam Spice. So with that, let me turn the call over to Sir Peter.
Thanks, Muriel, and thanks for everybody joining us today. I'm pleased to announce that Rocket Lab and Geost LLC have today signed a definitive agreement under which Rocket Lab will acquire Geost from Lightridge Solutions, or portfolio company from ATL Partners, and a cash plus equity transaction amounting $275 million, plus a potential $50 million revenue-based earnout. I'm very excited to say that with this deal, Rocket Lab will officially enter the payload market as a disruptive prime contractor to US national security. Our acquisition of Geost will bring on board critical technology and payloads that are relied upon by the Department of Defense for missile warning and tracking, tactical intelligence and surveillance and reconnaissance, as well as Earth observation and space domain awareness. That now primes us to deliver the complete stack of mission-critical hardware for US national security missions and opens up significant potential to reshape our business. Our track record with past acquisitions has shown that we have the resource, scale, and expertise to transform critical subscale satellite technology into readily available product lines for our customers, and we fully intend to do the same with Geost's technology. Over the next few slides, I will take you through strategic rationale for the acquisition and review Geost's products and market potential, after which Adam will cover the financial profile of the transaction. Rocket Lab is already a trusted contractor to the US national security missions across multiple launches and constellation spacecraft. With rocket satellites and payloads, we're uniquely positioned to be a disruptive prime contractor, delivering a completely uncompromised solution for national security quickly and economically. Flagship programs like the Space Development Agency's Transport Tracking Layers and the Golden Dome for America's Missile Defense have developed from a mandate to move fast and put next generation space capabilities into the hands of people who defend the nation. We are already a trusted and relied upon launch provider to the Pentagon, with our 3 rockets across dedicated small launch, hypersonic flight tests, and soon to be medium lift launch for the DoD's highest priority national security missions. In spacecraft manufacture and operation, we're a prime contractor to the Space Development Agency's proliferated LEO constellation, with a $500 million contract that puts us in charge of the design, development, production, test, and operation of the agency's next generation satellites. We'll also deliver tactically responsive spacecraft and launch vehicles for the US Space Force's Space System Command, supporting their ability to respond to on-orbit threats on very short timelines for the up-and-coming Victus Haze mission. And now, with our acquisition of Geost, we move into payloads to offer a complete end-to-end solution aimed at disrupting the industry, and it really is a logical addition to our vertically integrated national security offering and the next natural step for Rocket Lab. Geost's products are elegantly engineered solutions that integrate seamlessly into our business and our mission. Geost's compact, high-performance electro-optical and infrared systems for small satellites, otherwise known as EO and IR payloads, enable key capabilities that directly support our national security and intelligence customers. For ISR, with Geost payloads, we're able to deliver real-time intelligence from orbit, whether for global missile warning, tactical battlefield awareness, or multi-orbit surveillance. The technology is optimized for rapid deployment and cost-effective scaling, and is ideal for delivering critical data with speed, clarity, and confidence. And for mission autonomy, through this acquisition, we're bringing AI and machine learned-enabled technologies in-house to better support national security missions. Geost systems can detect threats, assess intent, and initiate responses without human input. And that level of autonomy is the centerpiece of satellites highly valued by the defense and intelligence communities. In the space industry, heritage is everything. It's critical. As we bring on a new payload capability, we will focus on finding a company with products that deliver best-in-class solutions to the industry. We believe we've found that in Geost, and it's clear that the Pentagon and federal agencies think the same. Between Rocket Lab and Geost, we share many of the same defense, intelligence, and national security customers, and adding Geost payloads on top of our launch and spacecraft offering means that the US government operators and our commercial customers will benefit from a more fully integrated suite of solutions to support their mission objectives. We're not just bringing on critical technology with fantastic heritage, we're also adding a roster of industry leaders committed to the mission, with decades of experience that will deepen our executive bench and expand our technical expertise. The acquisition of Geost will bring with it clean rooms, laboratories, and an expanded factory in Tucson, Arizona, and Northern Virginia that broadens our already expansive footprint in the United States. And importantly, too, it shores up US domestic supply of payload sensors designed, made, and built and operated in America. And with that, I'll turn over to Adam to dig into the specifics of the transaction.
Thanks, Pete. As disclosed in our press release from earlier today, Rocket Lab has entered into a definitive agreement to acquire Geost for $275 million in a mix of $125 million of cash and $150 million in privately placed shares of Rocket Lab common stock, plus up to $50 million in potential additional cash earnout payments tied to revenue targets in 2026 and in 2027. We're well positioned to close out this acquisition with ample cash and cash equivalents of $517 million as of the end of Q1 2025, and we have the ability to access the capital markets should we choose to. This acquisition unites our respective companies' backlog of exciting contract and pipeline opportunities across a range of common U.S. government national security programs. In particular, There are significant near-term growth opportunities as it relates to the upcoming Space Development Agency's Tranche 3 procurement that will develop and deploy more than 50 missile tracking and missile defense satellites for its proliferated constellation across 3 awards. Tranche 3 builds upon the agency's Tranche 1 and Tranche 2 constellation contracts, for which Rocket Lab is already a prime contractor on the Tranche 2 transport layer. Bringing Geost into the Rocket Lab portfolio, along with our previously announced planned acquisition of Mynaric, creates a more fulsome end-to-end mission solution to benefit our SDA customer. This also positions us to be a competitive provider for the Golden Dome missile defense system, a high-priority initiative by the current administration with a total projected value of up to $175 billion. The President's recent announcement made it clear that there's a strong emphasis on utilizing efficient and fast providers, which positions us well to capture these opportunities. Since the GAAP purchase price accounting analysis has just begun, we cannot speak to any GAAP forecast measures at this time, but we do expect this business to be neutral to modestly accretive to adjusted EBITDA in the second half of the year. The acquisition is subject to normal and customary closing conditions, including antitrust review with the Federal Trade Commission and Department of Justice. The deal has been approved by the boards of directors of both Rocket Lab and Geost and is not subject to Rocket Lab shareholder approval. The deal is expected to close in the second half of 2025. And with that, I'll turn it back to Pete for some closing remarks.
Thanks, Adam. And before we wrap up the call, if you're interested in more information about this acquisition, please reach out to our investor relations and communications team, whose contact details are available on today's press release. Otherwise, thanks very much for joining today's call. We look forward to speaking with you again in the future and talking about all the exciting progress that has been made in our business. Thanks very much.
This concludes today's conference. You may now disconnect.
All right. What an opportunity, man. I think that this is a continued piece of the puzzle. When people talk about end-to-end and they talk about how Rocket Lab is just when Sir Peter Beck and all them talk about end-to-end, but then you have people thinking that Rocket Lab is just a launch company, it just infuriates me at this point. I mean, it just goes to show that you're doing lack of due diligence and really not wanting to dive into what the true opportunity set is here. Yes, you have great companies out there like SpaceX and other companies out there that are truly going their own way to be able to figure out what's next in terms of the future. But these guys are learning from the dynamic movements of the Space Development Agency, Space Force, this current administration, to be able to be nimble and attack where they have the opportunity set. And I remember initially being somewhat upset about a year and some change ago about how they did the $300 million cap call raise to be able to shore up some cash. And I think at the time it didn't necessarily make sense to me because the company was only valued, I think, less than $5 billion at the time. And so a $300 billion cap call raise was like 8 or 9% of the float in terms of the total, value if you compared it to the market capitalization. But you start to look now with a $10 billion market cap, actually closer to 15 as of the close and after hours movements, $300 million really isn't too much in terms of the broader spectrum of things. It's still a pretty penny, but it's only 2% of the market cap now. And to be able to acquire such an opportunity like that, Geode, which is going to be very important with respect to the Tranche 3 SDA layer, measuring missile defense and things of the like that obviously are important to the potential Golden Dome contract as well. It's just a bolt-on that not only Rocket Lab needs, but also plays extremely well with the Mynaric acquisition. And to give people maybe some additional context with respect to that, literally just over 2 months ago, it's about 2.5 months ago now at this point, Rocket Lab made an announcement to pick up Mynaric, which was a company that's currently in bankruptcy. So technically it's the holding company of Mynaric, because obviously everything is kind of being held under a restructuring entity at the moment. So this is also to be done as well. And if I remember correctly, it was $75 million. Yes, here you go. $75 million initial purchase price here. And then I believe that there was an additional tranche of capital to be released, comparable to what they're doing with respect to the Geode acquisition. With performance, there might be an additional 75 million. So 150 million for Minoric, 275 million for Geode, plus I guess an additional 50 for Geode, so up to 325. It makes it seem like. So overall, about $500 million worth of opportunities that really are bolt on, right, and really allow not only Rocket Lab to continue what they're doing, but reduce the amount of additional companies they need to reach out to, right? Previously, Minoric was going to be part of the SDA Tranche 2, and it's going to be a bolt-on opportunity for them to now be kind of in-house at Rocket Lab. And then same thing with Geode, with the opportunity set that, you know, Tranche 3 kind of presents, / the Golden Dome opportunity. It just only makes sense, especially if you have the capital. So Rocket Lab, as the end of the first quarter, had over $500 million in cash. Some of that will be obviously used for this acquisition that was kind of announced today, the Geode acquisition. And yeah, the rest obviously being potentially used for the Minoric. And they also have I think they have like 400 million-ish left under the $500 million ATM that they've gotten kind of signed up. So how are people reacting with this? This is a little bit of fun that I like to see. We're starting to see some positives, mostly positives from folks. The folks at AST have been somewhat bitter with respect to my response of being excited about this. I kind of did poke fun at the fact that there's lasers being involved in this and not radio frequency, when all they've been giving me is that lasers have not been at all any sort of form of importance, but I'm looking into lasers to be the future. And they are still hung up on the fact that radio frequency is the way to go. And, you know, so they're, you know, I've had some people poke me like, oh, why is Matt being so mean to AST shareholders? It's like, well, you know, a lot of times people are giving me grief that lasers aren't important. And here we go, getting the potential for more opportunity with Tranche 3 and many other defense layer things, up to $175 billion contracts, not they will get the contract, but an opportunity to get a portion of $175 billion worth of contracts. And yet lasers aren't the future. So we have Tinfoil Tim. He's actually bought some shares after hours. So really happy with this acquisition. As people might know, Tim has been somewhat, I guess, what's the word he says here? What's the word? He didn't put it in this one. I guess he's been kind of critical. So I think he might have said it in his next tweet, which we'll get to. But he's been kind of critical with respect to the fact that Rocket Lab doesn't necessarily have the capability that he kind of thought, or the opportunity to really build some sort of constellation that would compete with AST's sort of radio frequency, internet, spectrum providing. And I know I'm going to get dragged through the mud on that. That's fine. Drag as much as you want. But at the end of the day, I always kind of viewed the opportunity for Minoric and what's going on with lasers to be extremely bullish. And so it's good to see that Tim kind of agrees with respect to that. Tim's way more educated on this stuff than I am, point blank. You know, I'm more of an enthusiast than I'm an expert. I'm by no means an expert. So Tim is able to explain these things in a way better fashion than I am. So it's nice to see that he's kind of coming to the table to say, this is a great opportunity. And he quotes, really happy with the acquisition, bought 1K shares after hours. That's, you know, 30 grand. It's not cheap. This finally positions Rocket Lab really well to compete for major Department of Defense programs like Golden Dome and SDA tracking layers. They really need to do this with the significant public relations involved, including a call they wanted to make their ambitions known to the government customer. Combined with Minoric, this is Rocket Lab doubling down as a U.S. defense contractor, not as just a U.S. space defense contractor, but a prime contractor. Just wanted to quote that there. It's past an hour after this, but I would have suggested you edit that. We'll be doing a bigger write-up of all the implications later. I'm looking forward to that. Like I said, Tim is actually very good with these things. As much as I like to call him Tinfoil Tim and everything, I say it in jest. He actually is a really good and articulate when he writes his posts. So very much looking forward to what he's kind of putting here. And he'll dub it the DoD payload. Commercial SATCOM payload will be a different acquisition. Interesting. So he's thinking that there might be a different opportunity set specifically for commercial applications going into the future. Let's see what Tinfoil Tim said when he eats a little bit of crow here. As you know, I've been critical shareholder as of the end of 2024. People have been giving me a hard time for it. Hey man, you like what you like. AST, it's going to be a good company. I like to give it a hard time, but in reality, I might be the one that ends up buying into it when they start generating a little revenue. Until then, I'm sitting on the sidelines. In the end, I guess both Uberbills and I were right either way in its own way. They were correct that Sir Peter Beck would deliver everything for them, and I was correct that the company is still missing a very significant part of the puzzle in order to complete the really compelling offer, both commercially and for the government. Basically saying that the reason why he got so bearish was because he got very bullish in AST, seeing the opportunity that they had for a large constellation for commercial customers, being internet, spectrum allocations, etc. And he didn't see that Rocket Lab had something comparable. Now he's starting to see that they do. With the recent moves, have now closed the gap in their offering on the government side. As I said before, Rocket Lab is doubling down on the U.S. Defense Prime contract. There you go. You got the Prime contract in this one. Over a commercial play for the time being. Otherwise, it would have been satisfying a different company called Satisfy instead of Geo. With two key DoD acquisitions like Monarch and Geo, Rocket Lab management deserves a lot of credit. Golden Dome, SC. Okay, so it's kind of the same comparable things that he said. In here, what else did he see? This is something that's nice. Never mind. I thought I saw the word key, and I thought it was going to say keys to space and neutron and everything like that, which I think is a very big proponent of why I think Rocket Lab has a leg up on something like AST and many others. Yes, it's great to be able to build satellites. It's great to have the opportunity to potentially have satellite access and spectrum access to be able to provide. But, having to pay a SpaceX or ISOB or whoever to be able to get to space, and potentially even Rocket Lab in the future, is this going to cost you $50 million a pop at a minimum? And so, it's going to be pretty much doubling the costs versus if you were to be working at Rocket Lab. You're only going to pay for one of the 20 launches, keeping in mind that the potential launches for Rocket Lab will be reusable. So the cost would be $2.5-3 million maybe in the long term for them to launch versus having to charge $50, potentially $60 million for another customer who isn't part of the Rocket Lab family. So anyway, interesting to hear his thoughts. Let's see what Hot Dave had to say here. Dave, good friend of the channel, looking at Papa Pete in shorts. If you guys remember, this is when Papa Pete actually grinded up this hat. If you guys remember this, maybe you don't. Put it in the blender, and with that, he actually ate part of the hat. I should actually show that at some point. I thought there was going to be more on Dave, so I had him up a second time. I don't know why I had him up a second time, but here we are. So just to go through the Geost acquisition one more last time, to give it a little bit more detail. So maybe this will help a little bit better. There you go. Tucson, Arizona, as well as Northern Virginia. So really adding to the bolt-on pieces of where Rocket Lab operates. They've been in New Mexico, Long Beach. They're all over the place, literally. Just potential Monarch acquisition gets them into Germany / mainland Europe, and then obviously the hypersonic stuff with the UK gets them there. They have Australia. They're doing work with Japan. Are they have any bases in Japan or headquarters in Japan? I don't know, but definitely doing a lot of work with Japan. So these guys are partnering with everybody at the moment. So $275 million in a mix of $125 million cash, $150 in privately placed shares of Rocket Lab common stock, up to $50 million in potential earnouts. So that's $275. So the $125 plus $150, and then an additional $50, getting it to $325 if they meet their revenue targets within the organization. This acquisition marks Rocket Lab's formal entry into the their satellite payload segment, strengthening the company's position as an end-to-end national security space solutions, and is expected to close in the second half of 2025. And to give a little bit more detail about Geost, with more than 20 years of flight heritage across classified and unclassified missions, Geost delivers advanced EO/IR sensor systems for missile warning and tracking, hence the STA Track 3 layer. Where was I? Tactical intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, Earth observation, space domain awareness, core capabilities for achieving U.S. Department of Defense goals of resilient proliferated space architectures like the proposed Golden Dome architecture and STA's tracker layer, which is the third of the layers. By bringing these critical mission payloads in-house, Rocket Lab enhances its ability to rapidly deliver integrated space systems, integrated spacecraft systems purpose-built for the United States national security, for reducing integration risks, reducing costs, and accelerating timelines. They saw that this was an opportunity for STA Layer 3, and they said, let's pounce on it. Geo's full suite of sensing solutions enables warfighters and mission operators to protect, defend, and execute with speed, precision, in an increasingly contested space environments. The acquisition adds optical systems as a new category within Rocket Lab's deep portfolio capabilities, cementing the company's role as a distributor in national security space. Papa Pete says, Rocket Lab was founded to disrupt the traditional space industry, and we're doing just that by expanding our ability to deliver complete mission-critical space solutions. With the acquisition of Geost, we're bringing advanced electro-optical and infrared payloads in-house to support secure, responsive, and cost-effective systems at scale. These technologies enable spacecraft that can detect, interpret, and respond to threats in real time, enhancing our role as a trusted provider of end-to-end space capabilities for the United States and its allies, with greater speed, intelligence, and operational control. The current general manager and CEO of Lightridge Solutions, who was the main owner of the subsidiary Geost, which is now going to be potentially acquired. Integrating Geost's advanced optical capabilities is a natural next step for Rocket Lab as the company expands its end-to-end space systems. By bringing high-performance optical technologies in-house, Rocket Lab has strengthened its ability to deliver responsive, full-stack solutions for government and commercial missions. Backed by the infrastructure to produce these systems at scale, Rocket Lab is well-positioned to meet its accelerating demand for high-performance space systems. The addition of payloads to its vertically integrated portfolio not only expands mission capability, but also elevates Rocket Lab's standing as a leading end-to-end space systems provider. In acquiring Geost, Rocket Lab will gain the company's extensive product assets, also manufacturing facilities and laboratories in Tucson, Northern Virginia, IP and product inventory. 115 highly trained professionals will bring Rocket Lab's headcount to more than 2,600. And that puts it against launch sites in Virginia, California, Colorado, Maryland, New Mexico, Toronto, New Zealand, and now Tucson. And we just listened to the conference call. One last thing as well. So we have Mopbox, who is a good friend of the channel as well, enthusiast of Rocket Lab. He had some words to say. What exactly does Geost do? Geost develops and builds optical collection systems that provide operational advantage in using data in from space, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance sensors, ISR. Geost has developed and fielded numerous highly capable space, small size, small size, weight, power, and cost electro-optical infrared sensors. These solutions support missions from the high ground of missile warning to supporting troops in conflict and enable time-critical knowledge for immediate decision-making. Geost has deployed collection devices on orbit in all orbit regimes as well as on the ground. Mission autonomy. Through a combination of ground and space-based systems with Geost AI ML-enabled software, we provide an autonomous solution that senses the threat, understands and formulates a plan of action, and initiates resiliency countermeasures. Laser communications. Lasers! From robust, low-cost, autonomous optical ground stations to complete laser communications terminals, Geost laser communications capabilities offer promise of securely moving large amounts of data over long distance at the speed of light. And then there's a good video, 30 seconds long or so. Let's listen.
The station was threatened by approaching debris, Russia's anti-satellite missile tests, and advanced capability in space.
National security on the ground means proliferated architectures in space. Geost. Small, affordable space payloads available now, enabling tomorrow's space capabilities today. With ready-to-scale technology and a proven team, Geost is ready to tackle the complex challenges ahead. Learn more at geost.com.
All right. Thank you to our friend Motbox for providing that clip so we could have a quick insight. So I'll try not to be snippy, but let's go to the tip top. People checking in over an hour ago. I know it was about half an hour to actually get started on the stream. So apologies, my friends. Over 100 people joining us. Appreciate you. Holy moly, too many streams today. Good job. I appreciate you, my friend. I'm glad to see you here. We got Scott, we got Legacy. To start your morning, hey man, every day is a good day to be able to make oil and gas, as I like to say, but in this case, it's a good day for space acquisitions. Navy vet, I appreciate your service, my friend. Appreciate you taking on the difficulties of being in our military services, and means a lot. It does. Uncle Swaggy Will, we got Aaron, we got Jamaza. Nah, Chris is gonna do a good job with AST, and I'm sure they'll all do well. We got Junebug, we got Hot Ray, BD Ray. Yeah, he's obsessed with the space services part of ASTS. Yes, he'll do a good job. I'm sure AST and friends will do extremely well. I did see it jump to $30.40 today. That was awesome. We got JS24 asking when Lambo. Great question. Probably never. I'm broke. I only have 5 shares. So it is what it is. Yes, SPB, our favorite dishwasher engineer. Saw you write that when he introduced himself on the conference call. I giggled. They were going to need to partner with Lockheed or somebody else for OPIR before this. So we pretty much got the whole kit for tracking layer. Yeah, they needed to outsource some things, so it's good to see that they're going to be able to bring it in-house, reduce some of the margins they have to pay, and increase gap margins for Rocket Lab in the meantime. More civilian satellite applications from the military ones, yes. Who knows? Meet up on Mars. I'm all for that. The call was not live. The call was live as of 5 p.m. Eastern, so 4 p.m. Central Time. So apologies, we're a couple hours behind. But I didn't have the opportunity to listen to it at the office. So wanted to listen to it for sure. The slides pretty much gave it away, but always great to hear from Peter and Adam, their additional insights. We got Miss Tesla. Whoop whoop. Yeah, man, they're really trying to get themselves to be known, and they're doing a good job of it. We got Miss Laura. How are you, Miss Laura? They did say AI. Yeah, there was an AI piece in there as well. A little bit surprising. Rocket Lab will go to 0. It already did. It did go to 0 earlier today. 3000. Took some profits, but still heavy. Hey, man, you got to do what's right for you. As long as it feels right. Nobody got hurt taking a profit. They were waiting until the restructure and announced a new acquisition. It's a legal new framework that benefits Rocket Lab. They also moved to a more tax-efficient state than California for HQ. Potentially. I was wondering the same, actually. I was wondering, but it's still U.S. defense, so they could have done it under the U.S. umbrella, I assume. So, I don't know. We'll see. ASD boards are very focused on last mile. D2D have hard to have an apples-to-apples combo with them because they're not seeing the full picture. Yeah, they're very much focused on, internet, spectrum, all that. That's good for them, and really hope they do well with it. I really do. I don't mean that, to be an ass. I know a lot of people that are in it, and I really, truly do hope that those friends do well. I don't want to see anybody do poorly. As much as I like to poke fun, it's really just pushback. Everybody was like, why is Matt talking about lasers? Why does he give a shit? There's not going to be any use for it. And I think that a lot of people were undervaluing it. So, yeah, I mean, I just know that Pete and Adam, I trust them with all the acquisitions they've done in the past, and every time they get another one, it makes me understand more and more. I mean, these guys live this stuff. I'm just an enthusiast that likes to see rockets go off. I don't know anything when it comes to satellites. I don't know anything when it comes to actually igniting engines and getting them into space. All I know is how to find oil and gas. Like, not even that. I rely on geologists and geophysicists to do that. All I know is pressures and temperatures. All right, like that's all I know as an engineer, and I try my best to get oil and gas to shore, or to certain pipelines and storage facilities. That's all I know how to do. So in that respect, I'm just an enthusiast. And yeah, anyway, as an AST guy, I would like to reach out and say, let's all be family. I love both companies. Agreed. I'll back down when your shareholder base stops being extremely rude and mean. I was generally asking questions over the weekend about trying to learn about Bluebird 3, and God forbid you have a question in the AST community. So that's all I'll say there. Spice said on the quarterly call there were half a dozen acquisitions in the pipeline. Yes, he did say that there was a lot of opportunities and they wanted to be nimble, and that was actually a good part. Actually, I'm curious if in my interview, which I want to break down the interview a little bit more with these guys to show the questions that I asked and maybe because it was an hour long. So I appreciate everybody hasn't probably had the opportunity to watch it its entirety, and looking and watching things for an entire hour, you lose concentration in pieces. So let's see. Europe, other opportunities. Let's see. Is that it? Other opportunities, wire manifest, ATM program. Let's try this. Let's see if this is what I want to share or not. There he is, Hot Dave.
I've got another question, if you don't mind rewinding a little bit to kind of some more acquisition talk, I guess indirectly. If we look at the recently announced at the market equity offering program, roughly 20% of that 500 million was tapped during Q1. Is this a similar rate we could expect going forward, this 20% per quarter, or should we expect something maybe a little bit lighter or maybe even a little bit more aggressive, kind of depending on the acquisition pipeline? Or how should we think of that going forward?
Yeah, I can take that. Look, I think that it's the beautiful thing about the ATM program is that it allows you to be flexible. It allows you to be kind of either proactive or responsive very targetedly, right? So, if we were to go out and put more capital on the balance sheet, you'd probably want to go do that similar size, call it $300 to $500 million, because that's a kind of an economically interesting thing to go do for certain types of investors. Now, when you do it in, let's say, a marketed deal, you have to give a discount, right? It's typically, let's call it anywhere between a 10 and 15% discount to market, which is not very shareholder friendly. You have to commit to maybe an amount of dilution that you might not ever actually put to work. So the good thing about the ATM is kind of you do it when you need to do it. You can be very precise about it. You don't pay a discount. You basically just pay a commission to the bank who executes on your behalf. So I actually think for certain situations, it can actually be a very, very good tool. But we don't have any defined kind of or prescribed thing that we need to do. We just sized it at 500 million because it seemed like the right thing, from just an economics perspective, to have enough dry powder available. And then, you may have noticed like what we tapped was in the vicinity of the Monarch deal that we announced and the capital that could be consumed from that deal. So I think, you can probably expect us to be, again, pretty deal driven on something like that. And the reason people might ask, well, you've got $500 million. Why would you need to tap anymore, even if you had another deal come to focus? But I think it's important because, as I mentioned, the deal flow is very high. And in order to remain credible in these deal processes, you don't want the people you're talking to say, well, we know you've announced this or this and this. And so you really don't have the capacity to kind of really kind of do our deal either. So we're going to go point ourselves in a different direction. And that's why having a certain amount of dry powder is always very important. And it's also very important to be able to point to a facility like an ATM and say, hey, look, we were able to
pull down $100 million to go facilitate this other deal that's now public. And by the way, we did it with very minimal to no disruption to the stock because we managed it very tightly. We put a floor under it. We kind of managed very precisely how much of the total daily trading volume we were going to expose the program to. So you can be very genteel with it. And so I'd expect kind of all of that thought process to continue. But no, there is no, hey, we're going to go tap X amount per quarter or X amount per month. It's all very kind of, I would say, for the most part, deal driven. I don't know, Pete, if you see it any different, if you have any different.
No, it's exactly right, Adam. Yeah, exactly right. Well, I mean, highly disciplined about, you're not going to see us blow out, hundreds of millions of dollars and do disruptive things. Very, very disciplined, very targeted. And, as Adam mentioned, like it's a very target rich environment right now. And it's almost our duty to make sure that we have the ability to execute on some of these things when they come along. So having that ability to, as Adam as Adam says, in a very targeted and disciplined way, create opportunities for ourselves is a super good thing.
Damn advertisements, bro. Why would anybody subscribe to this channel? But anyway, I appreciate everybody tuning in there. That was a interview that we did with Adam Spice and the CEO and co-founder, Sir Peter Beck. And so hopefully you guys had an opportunity to look at that. I should trim it down a little bit just to get some of the nuggets out there. It was an hour long. There was a lot of great opportunities to hear some things with clarity, some good questions, an opportunity where you're not necessarily fighting with 10, 15 different analysts to be able to ask questions. It's just me, Vince, Dave G, Scotto, having a great conversation with those guys. And we really appreciate it as always, and appreciate Muriel for setting that up. Let's run through the last bit of these questions, guys, and I'll let you guys get back after it. I want to keep this under an hour, just so that you guys don't have to worry about me for too long or have to put up with me for too long. Any insights from the conference call today? I think it's a great bolt-on acquisition, just like the previous acquisitions that I've seen. People underestimate owning the cheap keys to space and ability to change competitively for others to use, or charge competitively. Sorry, for others to use it. 100% agree with that. I think a lot of people discredit. Everyone thinks that launch is going to be a commodity. Yeah, maybe. But a commodity that 4 or 5 people may own. And with that, I think that it's going to be very competitive. And I think everyone thinks that everything's going to go to zero. There might be a place where it comes down a little bit more. But if I look at Electron prices have only gone up. They were charging 6, 7, 8. Now we're seeing 9 million. And for Haste, we're seeing north of $10 million launches for that. And that's a 300 kg opportunity, not for Haste, but for Electron, 300 kg opportunity. You're talking a fraction of what you can lift with a Falcon 9, the fraction of what you can lift with the Neutron or the New Glenn, but you're getting $10 million, and I'm anticipating that, won't be too far from now where you actually see the competitiveness actually go north of that. When there's fewer people that can launch, you can charge pretty much whatever you want, within reason, of course. So anyway, and acknowledging fully that the Neutron will come in cheaper than the Falcon 9, I'm anticipating you'll start to see a lot of competition between both the Falcon 9 and Neutron continue to heat up. Do you have a price target for 2027 prior to this acquisition announcement? I do not. I think I said something like north of $35 or something like that in my Rocket Lab article, but on Seeking Alpha, but that's just because they make you. I really don't know. I really don't. Appreciate you Fly By Night for the $4.99 super sticker. Much appreciated, my friend. Olga says, what a great day. I like your t-shirt, Olga. Hello, Matt. I've had Rocket Lab on my watch list for a while. Do not have dry powder on the tariff tip. Shall wait for a pullback, ? I was thinking to start DCing into it. Love the channel. I appreciate it, my man. Hey, buy what you can. You never know if it's going to go up, down, sideways. You really don't. And so I guess my question is I would take a quick look, do some due diligence. I know it's hard, especially if you're a beginning investor, which it might seem like you are. Apologies if that it disrespects you. I mean, no disrespect there. But you really have to think at the end in mind, where do you think this company is going to go? Do you think it's going to be 50 billion, 100 billion? what have you. We're sitting at about 15 billion right now. So if you think it's going to go to 50 billion in terms of market cap, you're going to get 320 odd percent return from where we are today. Does it matter if you pick it up at 25 or 26 or 28, or does it matter that you get on the ride and get 300% return? And that's kind of what I like to say to people. I know a lot of people that have been pulling this game where they're going to wait for the next pullback, and sometimes they get lucky, sometimes they don't. But what I will say is, and I'll say this myself, and I've invested more in Rocket Lab than I have in any other stock, individual security, than I have literally ever, other than maybe the S&P 500, which is an ETF. But I've put more money in my own capital into this company more than any other stock, and I still regret not buying more. So, and I've been buying, every other week for God knows how long at this point. So it just goes to show you, sometimes I tell my sister this a lot because she's starting to get into investing. Sometimes you just got to buy the damn stock and stop worrying about it. But of course, that means you have to have a plan in mind, right? Don't just buy a stock because. Buy a stock because you have the conviction that it's going to go up, 400, 500%, and have good reason for that, and acknowledging the risks, right? Are you okay with losing that 10 grand, 20 grand? That's always a possibility as well. There's an opportunity that Steve Fiorillo and I were talking about the other day, and it was like, what's the worst that happens? You lose 20 grand, 30 grand versus, hey, if this moves, it could go up 10x, 15, maybe even 20. And in reality, who knows? It could be a 25x opportunity from what we were talking about. It's like, the grand scheme of things, if you're okay with losing 20, 25,000, and you think there's an offset chance that you might be able to double or triple or potentially even 20x your money in a space that's growing, it's possible. It's, why not, right? As long as you're okay with losing that amount. So anyway, it really just depends on you. I'm not saying that you need to be buying here. It could be something that you think AST is a better buy, and that's okay as well. I mean, they're going after different opportunities, and at the end of the day, you have to feel right with your decision. Definitely, this will definitely fall under Rocket Lab in due time if it goes through. It still has to go through, just like my NARC still has to go through as well. We got Miss Lisa, we got Turk, we got Mr. Premium of the option. We got Hot Ray in here being the mayor of the chat. What's Randall got to say? The great commuter, Space. Sorry, Adam Spice does a good job communicating. Over under 45 days, so we see Neutron on the pad. I'm going to say over 45 days. I'm now saying October-ish time frame. My wife thought I was mad buying at $4. I started looking at houses around Tokyo to buy. There you go. How do you deal with the feeling of not having enough shares of Rocket Lab? I got a good chunk at 6,000 from last year now, but can't help it. I want to get more closer to 10K. Just buy as much as you can when you can, and you're doing the best you can. As long as you feel like you can look yourself. I can get upset with myself as well, but I can look at myself and say I did the best I can. I did the best I could. In retrospect, I could have said I could have done more. Of course, I'm always going to be able to say that, but at the time, it's this was my biggest single investment, to date in terms of how much capital I added, and so I did what I thought was right, and had I doubled that, I would have, and it still was at $4. I probably would be feeling a very different way. I'd have a lot more shares. But I would still be feeling a different way. And so, would I be comfortable with that amount, with what I knew 2 years ago, that going to zero? Probably not. But now, of course, in retrospect, after some risks have been pulled off the table, it's easy to say, but not all those risks were pulled off the table yet. There were still some roadblockers. And with that, we've gone through some major milestones that I don't think people recognize over the past year or 2 years. So. Selling any options, I want to dip your feet into some. Sell some puts, man. I don't necessarily think selling covered calls, unless you're doing super far out of the money. I don't think covered calls is the way to go here, personally. let's see, 822 average for me sucks seeing it go up, but you need more. Hey man, I add to my average every single day. It's okay. ASTS should be a winner. There will be many space stocks that win. I agree. ASTS will be a winner. I like to just give them crap because they give me crap. I agree. I don't think that it'll be one winner takes all. $175 billion contract, especially if they want to get it done in 3 years. It's going to be a team effort. People are going to have to chip in where they can. So just hoping that a couple $1 billion comes the way of Rocket Lab, and we're able to throw a 30% gross margin / something on there. And if that's the case, then hopefully we start to get to a place where, this time next year maybe we'll actually start seeing some cash flow break even numbers. So it'll be awesome. All right, all. I appreciate you. 50 minutes, 120 of you guys showing up. I much appreciate you guys. Really hope you guys enjoyed the quick check-in there. Of course, I'm not the star by any means. Those are the guys at Rocket Lab, Sir Peter Beck, Adam Spice. They're the ones that we really need to be thanking. I'm just a guy on YouTube, excited and enthusiastic about the stock. So as always, those guys are the heroes. Muriel's a hero. Appreciate all of you guys so much, and really just hoping to see you guys on Saturdays when we do Rocket Lab Weeklies. And this is far from the end. It's the beginning. We're not even in the second and in the middle of the second inning. We're not even in the bottom half of the second inning. We own space, and I'm very, 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 very convicted in this position. And I really hope that you guys are on board, and I will catch you guys next stream. Cheers.